I remember as like a teenager, not sleeping well at night, being concerned or worried, but I had a relationship that was very private with God. Never talked with anybody else about it, but it was real. And quite often I would get up middle of the night, 2 a.m, and go walking down our long driveway to Coulter Road. And I remember praying, just talking with God, and tears running down my face. I remember seeing stars through the tree canopy. I would sing "How Great Thou Art," because I knew that song from going to church, and that's how I felt. I was just amazed, just an immense love for beauty, the power of creation, the wonder of it. And I think I kind of developed that childlike heart. The first time I actually felt something deeply from art was actually when I was a freshman in high school. My mom, she made me play in the band. And I was terrible. I mean, I did audition. Everybody had to audition, and I got last chair trumpet, just a total embarrassment. But the guy that was the director that year, his name was Joe Dobus, University of Michigan graduate, rookie teacher, came in, and he was convinced that music was the greatest thing ever. And that it wasn't about playing notes, but it was about getting to feel it, to create an emotional expression that was meaningful. We're all just like, yeah, whatever, dude. We were terrible. We didn't know what he was talking about. Everybody was screwing around, and it was just a mess. But over that year, he kept at it, and he worked really, really hard. And I remember the day that actually this podunk group of kids playing, and actually we did something that was really beautiful and moving, like expressive, and it was in tune, and it actually sounded good for the first time. And I remember everybody I remember looking around, and everybody's like, oh, what the heck was that? And from that moment on, he kind of had our attention a little bit. And over about a 3-year period through high school, he developed a program where a great number of kids were getting, they were going to the big universities on music scholarships and stuff out of Lapeer, Michigan. My bar for excellence in all things, I didn't even realize it had happened, but I would compare Joe Dobus as a teacher to my football coach and to my biology teacher and anything else that I was kind of evaluating. So I went to college as a music major and ended up teaching my first year out at Oakland Christian School. What was interesting is the very first time I was troubled by the fact that it looked like if you were a follower of Jesus, if you're a Christian, that you had to kind of make a choice to be in a lesser camp. But if you were going to be really good, you couldn't really stay in that camp. You had to kind of go to the secular university and pursue this, because that's where the really great stuff was. And it's kind of made me mad. And I read a book by Francis Schaeffer's son, and it was called Addicted to Mediocrity. And I didn't read books very much at all, but that book helped me kind of put language to what I was feeling. And it was saying, why have we allowed the church and Christianity to be a place where it's just kind of mediocre at best, but the really good stuff is reserved for people and artists outside the church? And that just never went away. And so when I got to Oakland Christian, I think I tried to be Joe Dobus, wasn't very good at it. But I really was trying to help my kids sense what I had sensed, this something that was worth being a part of, worth listening to, that would move my heart deeply, And over years of, wanting to kill the kids and the kids wanting to kill me, we kind of got there, and began to experience expressing things that were really powerful. Now, what happened is when I met my wife, Callie, we started it was like a sing and dance kind of a thing. And in a Christian school back in the 80s, that was not allowed. But what happened is the kids were really gifted. It wasn't anything we did. They were super gifted as musicians and so forth. And they were able to communicate things so powerfully. And we would travel to churches. Surprisingly enough, this kind of secular type thing was moving people in church. Callie and I were married in 1985. And in 1986, we started attending this new church, and it was called Faith Church in Rochester. And lo and behold, a few months into that, this guy named Steve Andrews took a job there as an associate pastor at Faith Church. And but the neat part about him coming was that he had the charge and the permission both to plant a church, and it was supposed to be within 3 to 5 years. And so I'm like, wow, is this a real thing? People do this, And then shortly after that, Dave Wilson came from the University of Nebraska to become the chaplain for the Detroit Lions here in Detroit. He lands there. Somebody told him about this little church start in Rochester Hills. And so he came and ended up there. And so within a period, less than a year, all three of us ended up at Faith Church.
When I first saw Mark and Dave and Callie, Ann wasn't on the stage, but they were up leading the praise music before the beginning of the service at Faith Church. We weren't allowed to do praise music in the service. And they're up there, and Dave's kind of got a mostly comb over, and he's playing guitar, and Mark was up there singing, and I had two impressions. One is that Mark had about the most beautiful voice that I'd ever heard anybody at that time. Such a beautiful singing voice. And he and Callie together were angelic, but I didn't realize that he was a star quarterback for Lapeer High School, that he had all these other gifts. And of course, then meeting Dave, I didn't realize that both of these guys, we all three were quarterbacks, only they were good. Both those guys were actually good. And so we started hanging out and playing basketball and working out. And what we found is that we all had the same passion, which was for our generation to meet Jesus. We all had great experiences with Jesus and bad experiences with church.
When it comes to my role in Kensington, it's kind of strange that it actually happened for me because I didn't like church. I didn't really want anything to do with it. I loved Jesus, but I just didn't enjoy church, and it was never meaningful to me. And so Steve came to me one day and said, hey, I would love for you to consider being part of starting a new church with me, a church for the unchurched, people that don't like church. And I'm like, dude, you're coming to the wrong person. I'm not interested. He's like, okay, I know you won't do it, but would you just do this for me? Would you just take a trip across the country and visit a couple places? So he wanted to take me to Saddleback Valley Church, which was Rick Warren's church out in Southern California, and then a couple others out in California, and then on our way back, stop at Willow Creek Church in Chicago. On the West Coast, it was interesting, I enjoyed it, but it didn't resonate. But when I got to Willow Creek Church and saw something that was so powerful that used different methods of reaching people. So that back then it was drama, video didn't really exist, but music that was written from a real life standpoint, portraying people as real people, connecting with a God who loved them as they were, and it was done really, really well. Like, it was very moving to me. I looked at Steve and I said, is that what you're talking about doing? Because I didn't get it. And I said, if that's it, I think I could do that.
I want to welcome you to Kensington Community Church. It's perfect for today's modern family. It's called Video Dad.
Video Dad?
Video Dad?
After a few years into Kensington, we came up with a mission statement for the arts, and it was to create moments for people to engage with God. We thought about it a long time, like, what is it that we actually are trying to do? And because we know that, and we knew that we couldn't transform the heart. That's the work of Jesus alone. So we weren't in the business of transformation. That's him. What were we in the business of? And I felt like God, for that moment, called us to create these moments and create a space where people could slow down enough to even be in a posture where they could hear what God was doing, what he was inviting them to be a part of, what he was inviting them to feel about the reality of their life.
The spoken word is one thing, a sermon is powerful, but sometimes it's a drama skit that's so relatable or an artistic moment that's so beautiful or so powerful or so emotional, it cuts right in, and it does something you can't do with a spoken word. And so we wanted to use all of that to say, could we take people on a journey, especially people that don't believe God is relevant to their lives, watch the Spirit of God lead them to himself, and arts and the powerful preaching of the living word of God would all be a big part of that.
I feel like God called us to help people see that these dichotomies that were in their minds of secular life, just my life, my business life, my family life, and then I've got this church thing over here that I do with God. And they're supposed to coexist. They're supposed to be together. And so I think that's what we had the privilege of doing, was actually connecting with the thing that people cared about the most in a context where they could actually feel it and almost admit it to themselves, maybe for a first time, and then have a presentation of a loving God without judgment, embracing them and loving them in that space.
And every time I go for a promotion and you give me the laundry list of reasons why I won't get the job, you're not supporting me. And every time you say that you're going to buy salami and don't, you're not supporting me.
I'm sorry, Bobby. I'm sorry.
The good movies, good films, they reach in and they help you identify with your greatest needs, your greatest feelings, your greatest fears, your greatest longings. So it's in another character. Well, you've got a grid, right? So I'm watching this character, but my grid of my life is over it like this. So I'm seeing the character through my life and all the different parts of it. And so I felt like the challenge was to say, because you could take a topic. What's the topic of the message? Well, being wise with your finances. Okay. Well, I've listened to that. Well, we didn't have to come up with a song with the name finances in it, right? Or do a video that was the latest about. What we had to do was, I felt like we needed to think, okay, wait a second. So what are people feeling about finances? Well, one of them is they're freaked out. They're freaked out because it's out of control, the credit card debt. And so what we would do in the arts was not to talk about finances. We would try to present and help them connect to, I'm freaked out and I don't have any control over this. What do I do? Because if I can help them own that and realize that is their reality, then it's like now they want to hear what you have to say. I think God did something really amazing. Is that I think he brought Steve and Dave and I together for a very specific reason. And we brought really different things to the table. So Steve has this powerful apostolic gift where he has a heart for reaching people of all nations, of all people types, and having them experience Christ and having the church grow and moving into that's his heart. It's move to people that don't know, right? And Dave's like that, but different, is more of an evangelist approach. He's like, I want everybody to come to know Jesus. But it's going to be right here, me and you. And Dave has this amazing teaching gift to go along with that.
Mark had a prophetic gift, which was, what is God saying? What mountain? Where are we going? What are we hearing from God? It was sort of a prophet's gift. And so those three together, it was a beautiful mix. It really worked, and we all understood our different roles. And we ran fast.
As our first four kids got older, we were able to experience those opportunities of singing together and being a part of this mission. We always brought our kids along on the mission, but then they really got a chance to be active participants in it. And as a mom, those are treasured memories for me. I think for me personally, there were artistic moments that I was a part of and artistic moments that I didn't play a part in, but I got to watch these people that I loved and was living life with create this beautiful moment through their craft.
To actually step out in obedience to what he's asking you to do when you're like, I don't know how in the heck this is going to happen. That's what he did on a weekly basis. I think probably my fondest memories are the times when our whole team was literally sweating bullets when we came in for a rehearsal that morning, because we knew that, whoa, this could go really bad. and then God would put it all together, and I can't tell you, I would say hundreds of times we'd be in the wings and we would just put our arms around each other. So I remember Keith and Sandy Callan, Steve Matar, Joe Armillo, Kristen Twilla, all these people, and we would hug each other and tears would be coming down our face because we knew we couldn't do this. And he did it. I remember so many times we'd be in the back and go, oh my gosh, look what he did. I think what I learned is I'd heard that term from the story of Moses where God says, pick up the stick, and basically the whole concept of use what's in your hand. What I give you is enough. And Moses is like, I can't do this. There's no way I can go to Pharaoh, right? He's gonna kill me. And God basically said, use what's in your hand. And that became a war cry for us. And all of these values or these war cries were birthed out of experience. It was seeing God go, hey, you got what you need. I just think that's what's so exciting. And it's not a Kensington thing. This is a life thing. And I think more and more as we've gotten older, this is what God has done more. I thought when you got to be about 25, you figured out what you were gonna do for your career, you found a spouse, and you locked in and did it for the next 50 years. And you get those two decisions right. You get the right career, you get the right spouse, you're set. And one of the biggest surprises of life for me, and I think for you too, is that as we go through life every day, God's like, hey, I got this idea. And it's bigger than me. And I don't want to do it. And I can't do it. And he's inviting me into that every day. Why? Because he wants to do something that's God-sized, not Mark-sized. He said, yeah, anybody can do that. I want you to do something that only I can do. And that's been our experience over and over and over, whether it's Kensington Services or if it's our family. He's always, regularly, daily calling us into something that without him, I can't do it. Everybody who's at Kensington now is on an adventure. And none of us, the adventure is Kensington. Kensington's not the adventure. It's Jesus that's the adventure. It's Jesus calling you and your unique created being that he made you into something in partnership with the Holy Spirit that could never be done by another person, never will be done by another person. That's our excitement for people, every person that they would find with it. Some of them, they're gonna have that adventure at Kensington. Some of them are not. And it doesn't matter. What matters is that we can get to a place where we can surrender with no agenda and say, God, have me.
Here's my life.
Here's my life. You lead me, I'll follow. Well, wait a minute, I can't afford that. I don't have the resources. I'm scared to death. I hate that. I'll follow. And when we do that, it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be Kensington in 10,000 different iterations. Kensington, as we knew it, has already happened, and it will never happen again. So I hope nobody tries to duplicate that.
Right.
It's not supposed to be duplicated. That was for us, that was our adventure. What is gonna happen in this next season is gonna be more wonderful. It's gonna be something that has never been done before, that is gonna explode the kingdom, right? And so I just am excited to see for everybody that's connected to the Kensington family in any way, there's unlimited potential and varieties of assignments that God is going to call people into.